Hello, everybody. This is going to be my review of CloudBuilt. The developer wanted to know exactly what I was talking about when it came from the 4K resolution to 8K. So I'm just going to quickly go into the options and show that the resolutions in the 4K format is 7680 by 4320. It's going to be in full screen. VSync I usually keep on because the TV I'm using is the nano cell, so the VSync helps for the sort of lag of inputs and everything to come out forth. But essentially, what you're getting is the real resolution of the setting for this particular game. And one of the reasons why I always show this is to just verify that what you're actually seeing is the actual format of the game. So, just to go through it quickly before I go into the game, because I haven't played this one in a while. Um, Essentially, the first thing you notice is that the background, the cell shaded etchings, sort of kind of get in the way at a higher resolution more than it did at 4K or less, because at 4K it seemed to have proxy the line etching behind all of the assets, so it was a cool look. It looked like it was sort of getting a very etched stylistic approach to it. But what happens is with AK, for some reason, it comes into the foreground, and so what has to happen is the sort of the Z scaling on it. So the X scaling is horizontal, the Y scaling is vertical. Z scaling means you're pushing the image back quite a bit in order for it to have a distance look. Now, in side by side 3D or just in a virtual reality setting, because I've had both of those, you know that you have to work with the Z scaling in order to make it look much more efficient. But essentially, what happens is the game sort of has this problem with the Z scaling, and what happens is um, when you're going through it per se, you are essentially having to deal with the situation where the Z scaling has this etched out markings. What happens in 8K is that the game sort of kind of suffers from that etch out scaling. And what typically tends to happen is for both cloud build and super cloud build, the markings both move with the camera, which creates this sort of screen door effect by the inherent design of the Z scaling not being perfectly done. But two, because it's such in a high scale resolution, you can accurately see where the lines are, meaning that it looks like it's kind of a drawing that was actually done incorrectly. And looking at games like X-Men Legends or some of the old scale games that used to use this kind of style and formatting, it used to look good at a lower resolution, but at higher resolutions, what happens is the details sort of stand out so glaringly that it creates this sort of flawed approach as to the stylistic approach doesn't translate. And one of the reasons why is because if those etchings are going between the grates of the vent, for example, you will notice that you're still seeing the line marking come out before the engraving. So it creates this sort of disjointed effects between the image and the what's supposed to be the asset there, meaning that you have line marks between a gray, and that creates a very jarring effect because the etchings itself kind of create this surreal format. Let me see. The other game had an issue. Uh, so let me see if we can get to the first stage because I'm just gonna do. Uh, where is the first stage? Here we go. So I think the stage kind of does a good job at sort of going through what it looks like at a higher scale. Now, in the defense of the developer and the one who made this game, it's not, the onus really isn't on anyone. The onus is on me as the player to show people kind of why it's something that kind of destroys the game overall, but it's only because the higher resolution kind of makes the details stand out so hardcore that you can't get away with it. So what happens is in the background you get this sort of X drawn effect, and it's so noticeable because you can tell exactly in the C axis where it is, that it needs to be way pushed out. So if you're looking at like a graph, instead of putting it like maybe +8 on a graph, you have to put it like +32, +64, +128. You have to put that so far back because AK gets the details so accurately right that 8K is essentially 4 times the resolution of 4K. Now, initially, when I got 4K or 4K, it kind of looked at first that it was going to be something that was incredible. But what I didn't know is that 8K would be a 4 times upscaling of it. And what this does is sort of creates this own immersive effect. But what happens is with assets, you notice that. Let me see, I forgot how to boost. But it creates this effect where you sort of notice that the effect one doesn't scale well with the game, but it also creates something that is a problem inherently. And what happens is kind of like with this. I forgot how to play again. My bad. But you sort of get into the effect of where the background one becomes so distracting that it's kind of like gets interferes in the way that you play the game because you're so focused on like the etchings kind of getting in the way that you're sort of looking at it, and the effect of it is kind of hard to recognize and too hard to corporalize in effect that you're looking at the game, and the etchings sort of take the immersive effect away from it because it gets so distractingly in the way that you're likely to more notice the etchings than you are to notice everything else going on. So I'll just go on and complete this stage and try to finish it fast enough so that I don't take too much time. So the main critique is even though it looks good and it has a lot of things going on with it, the problem of why I can't approve of the game is because since the resolution is so high, if it gets this distracting to the player where the player can no longer appreciate what it was trying to do, you start getting to the fact where you want to like it, but both games have this problem of being in the way with its design. So and so I am at 8 minutes. So just to cap out everything that I said, the main points is one, it looks like it could have been done and refined well, but the way that the game is designed, there's a lot of inherent things that have to be done inherently, like reducing the size of the character or increasing the size of the character. That decision has to be made. But two, when you're looking at the drawings and its own design, sort of that has to either be shrunk down, makes look like it's inherently in the background. But three, just like Cloud Built, you get into inherent problems where the design itself sort of has to be taken back to the drawing board because it's become so distracting that you can't really focus on the game because the inherent design, the composition of the game is sort of kind of in the way where you can't really look at it in the way that you used to because at a lower resolution it didn't meet the criteria of being that distracting. Whereas in 8K, the format is a little bit too heavy in order to be able to appreciate it. So that's going to end the review of this. But overall, it's not bad. At lower resolution, it's fine. But the main deal is you want to make sure that the composition looks good by the time you want to start playing it, or else you're going to leave.